What's up, world? Welcome back to the WRPF podcast. I'm your host, Alex Uslar, episode 27, the long-awaited episode, all right? We have Captain America himself, Bilbo Swaggins, none other than John Haack, the man, the myth, the legend. What up, John?
Oh, what's up? Not much.
Hell yeah, man.
Excited to compete in a week and see what I can put up.
Dude, you're always competing. When we have, so you guys, if you guys listen to this podcast, you guys know the format. Usually we kind of interview style. We go through each lifter's kind of history of competing, where they started, where they are, some of their highs and lows. A lot of you guys know John Haack's history of the last couple of years. He's always doing bangers. He's always performing. He's always coming, sweeping the competition. So for this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about his history of competing since 2013 to present day. But I got a ton of questions I want to ask you, John. Everything from talking about the American Pro, talking about Sheffield, talking to the IPF side about the IPF side of things, because you're someone who's been involved in that and how competitive the IPF is getting now. And yeah, we're going to talk about a bunch of shit. So you guys are in for a treat for this episode.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. So without spending too much drawn out time, what brought you to powerlifting in 2013? What were you doing before and how did you find it?
So I've always trained for strength specifically. Even started lifting when I was 10, got like a weight set, and then always trained for like strength for sports, football and wrestling. And then got to college. My friend that I started lifting with, he did powerlifting in high school, so got on his coach's program. And he decided to sign up for a meet, convinced me to do the same with him, and ended up falling in love with the sport.
Hell yeah. So you guys know I always have the open powerlifting history open. And something that I find pretty interesting that I want to talk about. You first meet, whatever, in Wisconsin, where you're from, right?
Yep.
Then literally your second meet on open powerlifting. Some of you youngins who listen to this might not know this name that I'm about to say, but any of you guys that are closer to John and my age, closer to your 30s, who started powerlifting in 2013, 2014, 2015, you know about Raw Unity Meet, right? So your second meet ever was Raw Unity Meet. Talk to me about that. How did that happen?
I don't even know how I got like invited to that. I think I did like just well enough on my first meet, and then I left it with Pete Rubish, who was a really big name at the time, and he was with Animal, and they were kind of the ones sponsoring the whole meet. I think he might have got me in with that, and I remember going there. I was like 21, and I actually just turned 21. It kind of sucked because I couldn't drink for my 21st birthday. But yeah, I went to this meet and I was natural. I got everyone else is basically on gear at that point, and they were talking about how much they're cutting weight, and I was like, just like I don't know, I didn't eat breakfast this morning.
And then there's you guys might have seen those pictures that John has posted before. There's the pictures of you and Dan Bell, right? And then Andre Milanichev, I'm pretty sure competed that year.
The picture of me and Dan Bell was the next year, I think.
Okay.
I don't know if Dan Bell did the first one I did. So did like RUDD 8. He might have done 7. I don't remember, but the famous picture of us is from RUDD 8.
Though that meet, though, there was just so many legendary names always competing. You were probably, I mean, you were watching the sport, so you knew all these people. So already in your second meet to be able to go compete and meet all of them, that must have been pretty legendary.
Yeah, I think that was maybe one of Milanichev's first 1,000-pound squats, if I'm not mistaken. I remember he had like 4 guys wrapping his knees. Like it was like one guy holding his shoulders down, another guy holding his legs, and then someone was like wrapping it around his knees. And then like with each wrap, like another guy was like pulling it like from underneath to like get it even tighter.
Dude, I remember watching that year. They had some kind of like crappy YouTube live stream. I was in Disney with my family and we were camping in Fort Wilderness, and I was there in a tent and I was watching the live stream and shit like that. So legendary, good times. But so right there off the bat, your second meet, you had missed lifts, and even with missed lifts, you put up a 497 dots, which at the time Wilkes was probably pretty close to that as well. So you're
Yeah.
already establishing yourself very, very dominantly. So from there, we can kind of jump along. You more on the side stayed the USAPL, competing at Raw Nationals, climbing those ranks while still mixing in the rums and such, right?
Yeah. So my next meet after Raw UD was a UPA meet. And that was the first time I set the drug tested 181 record. And that was right around when Brett Gibbs was kind of on his come up as well. He had just won Worlds, and it became the debate of like which one of us is the better 181 lifter tested. And obviously, I wanted to prove myself, so made the switch over to IPF, did USAPL, and ended up beating him at Worlds.
So it's like when you guys hear this, and again, if you go reflect back on John's open powerlifting, it's nuts. Very few people in their first year of competing, granted, you'd been doing strength sports for a super long time, already can put on their radar being the best in a weight class and, much less obviously being the best in the sport and doing things that other people haven't. But that just kind of shows that you were set up to be the number one spot for a reason. Like you were able to establish these things pretty early on.
I think I also got very lucky with my timing because I basically my come up in the sport was around the same time as like raw lifting started coming up. So I was kind of always just like a little bit ahead of the curve on like the top level guys.
Agreed.
Like.
Because 2015, 2016, we still saw a lot of the guys competing in wraps, going over the big dogs and doing all those meets, boss of bosses, a lot of predominantly wrap lifters. So you staying kind of in the IPF sleeve tested side of things, let you kind of climb up like that before you converted over, right?
Yeah.
So you won worlds, you established that goal that then took you into your next phase, right? So coming over, starting to do untested meets, with the first one being the US Open.
Yeah. So after Worlds, I was kind of unclear of where I wanted to go with lifting, at least if I wanted to stay in like the IPF or if I wanted to venture outside. I knew I didn't want to always be in the IPF. I didn't just want to be the best drug tested lifter. I just want to be the best lifter, period. And that's when the US Open dropped that big, like $200,000 prize pool and made the decision to switch over to that pretty easy.
So that first year that you competed in 2017, you competed in sleeves still that year. Is that correct?
No, actually, I wore wraps for that.
Okay, you did wear wraps.
Like that's the only meet where I've worn wraps.
And then the next year's US Open, were you trying to do wraps again when you tore your quad?
Yeah, so in the 2017 one, I was kind of getting some quad issues, and then going back to the wraps, they started happening again. I just didn't really have enough time to really learn the wraps, so I decided I was gonna just go sleeves. And unfortunately, on my opening squat, I felt the quad tear, and that's I think the only meet I've really bombed out of.
So there you guys have it. I'm sure you get that question probably more in previous years now that raw lifting is more predominant. But why doesn't Haack throw on wraps and squat 900 pounds, 950 pounds? He tried it. His body wasn't staying the healthiest. So now you've decided just to stay clear of that, right?
Yeah. So I was kind of playing around with the dots calculator and seeing what I would need to hit 700. And I was like, if I took the time to learn wraps, maybe it's attainable. So that's kind of in the back of my head of like, that would probably be the only reason I'd go back to wraps is to make a run at 700 dots.
So since we're on the topic of increasing your squat, making a run at those things, doing things that are advantageous for the total, the question you get asked all the time, but I'm also curious, maybe you've answered it on Q&As and shit like that. Why high bar, bro?
I don't know. It's just, I gave low bar a shot for a few weeks and it just didn't feel good. And yeah, I felt like, especially early in my career, I was way more quad dominant. Like since then, my hips have gotten stronger and like my glutes and stuff. But early on, quad dominant, and at this point, I'm like so far along that I feel like switching that would almost like set me back a little bit.
Just gonna say, Jawan was super adamant on only ever doing high bar when I started coaching him, and I just started sprinkling it in. Granted, he had a really long off season. Your competition seasons are usually back to back, and he added about like like right away, next training block, like 60 pounds to a squat, and now 100 pounds since he switched from high bar to low bar as a tested lifter. So maybe one day we'll see it. Just saying. Just saying. So
Maybe
then
I'll do what I need to
continue.
win.
Yeah, exactly, bro. So that'd be cool to see the 700 dots because no male lifter has even gotten close to that, right? Christy Hawkins being the only female to do it. So that'd be pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
So continuing through that history, you started doing the US Opens like we talked about. You did Boss of Bosses. And then I remember the first time that we met was the first hybrid showdown, right?
Oh yeah, yep, that's right. That would have been. Mhm.
So that meet, it's funny. I talked about that on a previous episode. I was just like, what the fuck, dude? Like, this was only your first year into competing in the untested side of things, right? Breaking more all-time world records, climbing the ranks. We had a whole thing where it was supposed to be deadlift only portion for all the pro lifters. That's where the money was at. That we had a regular full power meet, but that was essentially the amateur portion. There was no money in doing it or anything like that. We're sending out these deadlift invite only, deadlift only invites, and you hit me up and you're like, I want to also do full power, and then I'll also do the deadlift only.
Oh yeah, yes. I had 12 attempts that day. I think.
Yeah, bruh. Yeah. So, and that meet you had hit, I'm pretty sure you broke the all-time world record total again at that meet, had a massive performance, near 600 dots, 593 dots at the time that you added, like 15 dots points to your total. So talk me through that.
Yeah, so I think a lot of that was I had like a pretty bad streak after that 2018 US Open where I kept like tweaking my quad every time I try to like kind of get above that 600 range. And I figured out like I need to like take a little step back, give myself a little bit like more time to recover, take it a lot slower. And that was, I feel like hybrid was like the first meet where I kind of like, I guess like figured it out and found out that like just making slow, steady progress was the best method. And it's been going well so far.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you guys look at that, that was December of 2018, right? The first hybrid showdown, 875 total.
Mhm.
You were just constantly adding to there, adding to there, adding to there, adding to there, staying nice and steady and consistent and getting kind of climbing those ranks into number one spot. So, so then after those meets, we're going to kind of, you guys know the history since then, right? Since then, since 2019 to 2020, John has been kind of, number one on the charts for the most part. The Mr. Unbeatable, right? So that kind of brings us to present day. So how has prep been going for this meet specifically? And besides what you just talked about, like that 700 pound or the 700 dots potential down the line, talk to me about current present day goals and where your head's been at.
So this prep has been kind of up and down. So I did strongman back in the summer. So that was kind of the focus for my training this whole off season. And then basically finished the strongman meet and had to go right into prep for powerlifting. And my squat and deadlifts are feeling amazing. Like the amount of like strength I put on my posterior chain from the strongman was just I definitely think I'll throw it in for this next off season just to mimic that. Maybe not quite as hard as I went for this prep, but that said, my bench though took a huge hit, and it's like finally like this past week, kind of the single that I hit was the first one where I was like, all right, it feels like I'm kind of remember how to bench.
Interesting. So for your training style, a lot of you guys out there might watch John train. And again, off season into his in season, when you kind of start prep, you're self-coached, correct?
Yep.
So you start very far out with top singles, right?
Yep.
And then you have whatever back off work you may have to kind of prime yourself. And me as a coach, also knowing how that works, you kind of give yourself a starting point and then kind of an ending point of where you want to be going into the meet to kind of give yourself an idea of how to surpass where you previously were, correct?
Yep, exactly.
So how does that kind of line up where you are right now going into the meet with where you have been in previous preps?
So squat and deadlift are like they were way ahead, but on my last heavy deadlift day, my last or second, well, it was supposed to be my second to last warm up. I felt a little tear in my glute, so unfortunately, that's been kind of hampering my squat and deadlift these past weeks. But I'm hoping I tested it out last night on squat and deadlift earlier in the week, and it wasn't bugging me too much. But we'll see on meet day if it's feeling good. I should have a very good meet, but I don't know. I think I can like get by enough that I can do what I need to win. But if it's not 100%, like unfortunately my goals probably aren't going to be there. Bench on the other hand is so the big goal is 2,300 pound total, and I was like probably the minimum bench I need to hit would be about 572, and I was able to hit that yesterday. And I think with an extra week of leading into the meet, like that between like 572 and 584 will feel a lot better.
And that's sick because you've already benched 600 in comp, but at a higher weight class, right? When you didn't cut, and to know that even to hit a huge total PR and put yourself beyond where you have been previously in these unbeatable meets, you still don't even need to whip out a PR in bench, right? So that's pretty sick.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
as far as like kind of the unbeatable side of things, right? This has been a topic that I've talked about with a couple people in this previous episodes, right? At a big competition like this, anything can happen, whether it's weight cut getting any individual athlete, injuries getting to any individual athlete, poor attempt selection. You're someone that's like your history, you're tried and true. You're very smart with attempt selection. It's not always about sure the 2,300 pound total would be nice, but not losing money and walking out there with the money in your pocket is also part of the game as well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, looking into this meet and looking beyond this meet, who are the lifters in the untested side of things that you could see giving you a run for your money?
Definitely like Blake LaHue. He's a phenomenal lifter, and I think his form's so like dialed in that like if he's on, he could like basically pull anything to win. And but it's kind of hit or miss depending on the day. It seems like sometimes he'll go like basically like 4 for 9, and then if he like puts together like a 9 for 9 meet, he could beat anyone. Jamal, we'll see how his deadlift focus training transitions back. He basically almost beat me at the Pro Raw last year. If I didn't hit my last deadlift, but I'm trying to think of Zach Myers, obviously all the guys that are above like 600 dots, Jawan, and then Chad's always a threat. I'm sure I'm forgetting some people. Dan Grigsby. I'd say those are like top guys.
Obviously, now going into the American Pro, it's like don't have to worry about Blake since he's doing raps. Don't have to worry about Chad because he's doing raps. But definitely looking forward to the Ghost Clash. That's going to be super sick to see the three of you guys go head to head. Blake transitioning back into sleeves because what he's been doing in raps is just absolutely fucking absurd. He squatted 804. After being a low 700-pound squatter, that's nuts. So if he can get transference and just overall strength into his squat when he goes back to sleeves, that could be pretty freaky. But then there's also the flip side of things where Blake has now said he wants to go up to 198 to really give you a run for your money. So it's like, will he be able to make up that number deficit that you need to get those points? So
it's also gonna be curious like how much weight he can put on too, because he's a few inches shorter than me, so he can only put on like so much more mass onto his frame.
Dude, he's gonna have to like walk around and look like Gavin, bro.
Yeah, for real.
Absolute meatball, So
tell Gavin congrats for getting the wild card invite to Sheffield.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. All right. So that's Sheffield. Perfect transition. We'll come back to kind of some American Pro untested side of things, but the tested side of things. I know you're like me. You're a big fan of powerlifting, especially someone who was in IPF before. You love watching it. You know so many of those guys. You support so many of those guys. Like what these guys are doing in the tested side of things is absolutely insane. And Sheffield this next year is going to be exciting. but it's going to be very similar to this previous year. But looking at Sheffield 2025, it's going to be absolutely absurd with all these guys who are now making the cross over to Powerlifting America to try to qualify. And now you have all those guys over there that are already totaling in the USAPL, 100 pounds over any IPF world record. To get those points of over the world record total is going to be absolutely absurd.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
To kind of get your opinion, who are your kind of top 3 to 5 picks of who you think are going to push the envelope the farthest in the tested side of things and going into Sheffield 2024 and 2025?
So I'd say like the top, like I just like overall tested guys. I think Perk's like my number one. Just the way he hit his like 850 or whatever total it was.
So easily. So
easily. I'm like, this kid's gonna be like he's gonna probably dethrone me, which hurts my soul a little bit. But I've talked to him a couple times. I love the kid. And then I'm kind of split between Rondell and Jesus as being like the next guys. I think Perk is like a step above in my opinion. I'm biased towards like a guy that can do it in a weight class, I guess. So like I think having to like make weight is almost like the harder part than like being a super heavyweight. Just I'm probably gonna get hate for that, but
no, I mean, dude, it is an absolute added stressor, added factor. Not knowing how your performance is going to go, not knowing if what you hit in the gym you'll be able to match the competition, especially with a 2-hour weigh-in, right? It's a huge difference. So many variables go into that. I think personally, the whole Perk versus Jesus and Rondell, it's they're both so different, right? Because I think what Jesus and Rondell are doing is pushing the envelope in such a different way because they're besides Ray Williams, there hasn't been any big motherfucker doing things that give the untested guys a huge run for their money, right? Mm-hmm. But where Perk also, for so many years, Taylor Atwood, that one, perfect performance he had at Raw Nationals 2020, 2021, 2019, whatever it was, where he dotched over 600, that was just held on such a high pedestal, even though it was done once. And there wasn't quite anything close to it, since or before. For him to come and absolutely just sweep that away, it had to happen eventually, but the way that it was done, it was that was pretty impressive because it was such a talking point. There's only one ever 600 dots done in, the tested side of things. So I can agree that he would be in the number one spot for sure.
Yeah, I think Russ is up there too. Like the numbers he's putting up in training are just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Squat's been looking crazy strong. He did like 705 like 5 or something like that.
But that's another one, like exactly what you said, and especially the 2-hour weigh-in side of things. It's like making weight is the huge added stressor and added factor where it's like you can see those things going on, but you don't know how that's actually going to translate. And that's something that I think is very impressive with watching your lifting and your fans watching your lifting, and something that I've always observed. It's like, okay, I understand where your training track is, where you're going from week to week, and you're able to take that and still replicate that in the meet with your weight cuts. Whether it was when you've done 198 or the couple meets where you didn't need to worry about weighing in at 198 and you weighed in a little heavier. So that's definitely, I feel like, the big what if, for some of those guys. And Russ looks absolutely insane, right? But his last meet, he weighed in at 198, like on the dot. The Korea meet that he did where he totaled 870. So it's like, is he walking around at, 205, 210 that he had to make weight for 198? Or if he's just cruising at a solid 198 and then you're cutting down to 183. So
yeah, exactly.
That would be, and again, that's all looking in that 2024, 2025, because all those guys are trying to make a run for the Sheffield. And it's like, it's, being there, dude, I'll tell you, that shit was nuts. The American Pro is next level. Being there last year was amazing as well, but that shit was crazy.
Yeah, I was watching that one the last stream. I definitely, if all those guys show up to 2024, I'll probably go out for that one just to spectate.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty nuts. And it's pretty cool. They already finalized that lineup for this next year, and then after that, seeing all those guys kind of battling it out for those spots. It'll be interesting to see how many of those guys can kind of push the envelope, But at the end of the day, it's always going to be split, right? We're going to have the tested side of things, the untested side of things, and there's always that argument of who's the GOAT and who can be kind of dethroned because they're also two different worlds. In your opinion, because it's for years now, people have been trying to say you're the GOAT, you're the GOAT, you're the new GOAT. What kind of establishes a true GOAT status?
Um, I think you need to have like the milestones. Like, I mean, a single record's always going to get broken, but like, I was the first 181 to total 2K and first 90 to do 1,000 kilos. So I think those are like important things that like no one can take from me, which I'm really happy with. And then winning the big meets and longevity are the like three things I think you really need. And and then beating like people head to head. You can't just like do local meets.
Desk grip, Derek. Just kidding.
No, he does better meets. American Pro
I actually said it the other day on my American Pro preview show. I don't know, man. He's off the roster for the American Pro and said he's injured.
Yeah,
but
he pulled like 925. Like
he just pulled like nine something and then benched 474 at like RPE 5 and said, "Oh, I cut it here because I hurt my pec 8 or 9 weeks ago." I don't know, man. I wouldn't be surprised if he pulls some shit and then just shows up. That'd be cool if he did.
He really is the wild card of like powerlifting.
100%. And I love his shit talk and also hate his shit talk, and I've given it right back to him. When he gave Jawan so much shit for pulling out of the USAPL meets and Raw Nationals like he was supposed to do. And I'm like, dude, you've been signed up for the last 2 Ghost Clashes, and I don't know what other meets that I've done. You've paid me the money, and then you didn't show up for them. And he's like, why are you complaining about free money? I'm like, I'm not, bro, but I'm just saying, come on now.
Yeah, I remember he did a podcast, or I don't know if he did a podcast or just was like commenting. He like was kind of shit talking me, and it was before I like really knew who I was, and I was just like, like fuck this guy. And then I met him, and I was like, all right, he's pretty cool. I'm like, I get that, like it's just fun, kind of
got your
shit talking.
attention though. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. You never know when he's fucking serious, and that's what I like about it. It's like he's not full of ill intentions. He's just playing the villain. But yeah, no one's safe from his shit talk.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why I'll talk shit and say, come on, motherfucker, you pull that again. And if you just hit those numbers in training and you're not going to come and fight these boys, come on now, Derek. So we'll see. That was in my predictions the other day that maybe he'll end up showing up, because that like on the sleeve day, you guys have the most competition of, it was 6 guys with an over 600 dots all competing. So losing him obviously took away some of that battle for second and third, but we'll see. We'll see.
Gotta get his 242 record back, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's right. Yep, Jamal took it. Yeah. So, and that would be cool seeing Grigsby also go making a run for that, because I had him on a couple months ago, and he has some pretty lofty goals. Oh well, never mind. I won't speak about that. Not supposed to talk about that. Never mind. So anyway, goals after the American Pro, right? So you kind of talked about what you've looked at with maybe the reps, maybe the this, that, and the other. We have the Ghost Clash, which is going to be 22, 23 weeks after the American Pro. So you have a good amount of time, right, to kind of back off, rebuild, back up. Beyond that, looking at 2024, where's your head at?
So I want to hit the 2,300 total at 90 kilos. Whether that's this meet or Ghost Clash, I don't know. But past that, I was kind of thinking I wanted to move up to 100, but after doing the strongman and just enjoying it so much, I kind of want to make a run at that official strongman games and go for the title of world's strongest man under 90 kilos. So I might kind of float in between that, or I mean, I already am, but kind of float a little bit more into that 100 kilo and 90 kilo range where I can make either weight class. And then once I do commit to moving up to 100, I'd like to make a run at out totaling Ed Cohen's 2405 or whatever that he did at 100 kilos.
Was that raw single ply wraps, or what was that?
I mean, like 80s.
Right. 80 standards, ace bandages. Who knows if they had, friggin' rubber bands underneath them to spring you out, right?
I think like if I did that with like maybe I'd try and find a meet with like a stiff bar or something like that. I don't know. And just kind of put myself into that where I would feel like good about being in the conversation with him.
Hell yeah, that'd be cool because I don't think there's anyone that's even tried to make a run for that specifically. So that'd be a cool kind of adding to the resume, so to speak. But something to speak on something you said a couple minutes back, it's like, I totally agree with for that ghost status, something big that goes into it is that longevity, right? Because even someone like Ray Williams, who is super dominant, he had a couple years being dominant, and then now he's a conversation of the past. These young kids, who look up at Jesus Oliveras, have no idea who Ray Williams is, right? When a couple of years back, we were all looking at him like, "Whoa, what the fuck," and you're someone that, again, you can look at that history. And even when you started competing in the untested side of things at a super, super high level, where on the untested, there's so many fallouts of people who come in, break all-time world records, and they're gone. You've been doing it since 2017 when your first pro untested side of things was 6 years. It's a long fucking time, dude. You're getting old.
I know, I feel it.
But it's impressive to see that you're still able to still do these things at a high level and that you still have these goals, to continue on. So, yeah.
It's actually funny. I actually had a dream last night that I like retired after the American Pro, and I like woke up and I was just like, did I actually do like fun? No, like I can't be thinking that.
Is it like a panic thing?
Yeah.
Yes, dude. I'm 11 years sober, so I have those kind of dreams all the time. I wake up and I'm like drinking or doing something like that. I'm like, and we're going, oh fuck, did I fuck everything up? Like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, oh no, it's just a stupid goddamn dream. Gotta love the anxiety. Gotta love the anxiety. So, after the American Pro, what's your time going to kind of look like leading up to the Ghost Clash, using those 22 weeks, for people that they see you compete? That's something I'm curious about. So much back to back to back, right? Even though 22 weeks may sound like a long time, it's not the longest amount of time. How do you kind of structure your training to stay healthy, to be able to turn it around and keep going?
Yeah, so I usually kind of work backwards from the meet. I do like 12 weeks is my like peaking where I start hitting singles, and then take 1 week before that as a deload, and everything else before that, between that like 13 weeks out and at the end of the American Pro, is going to be basically volume work, pretty standard, whatever what everyone else kind of does, just tons of reps.
So you're saying you don't need to deload every third or fourth week?
With some people's programs you do,
yeah, right, motherfucker. So you've been self-coached for like 5-6 years now, right?
I worked with Mike T for a little bit. Actually leading into the Ghost, I worked with him. I liked his stuff, and like I have applied a lot of what I learned from him. But I like to. He's very much like, all right, like here's like the block. It's kind of the same like week to week to week, and then you like work up to RPE. I like to kind of tweak things as I go based on like how I feel. So, especially on bench, like I was feeling like I needed to like constantly make little tweaks to get back to where I wanted to be, and just with his style of train, it didn't like work out that way. So, but yeah, it's been about 2017, I think, is when I last worked with Joey. Yeah, nice. Basically 6 years of self-coaching.
I mean, it's like you had a lot of years under your belt before that. So understanding yourself, knowing how to push, knowing where to push, knowing how to pull back is obviously super important.
Yeah, so I was doing my own off-season training with him. It was always like just peaking that I worked with him.
So after like the American Pro, are you going to still kind of incorporate strongman stuff into your off season, or kind of too close together?
Yeah, I'm going to throw in like probably 1 day a week. When I was prepping for the Chaos Classic, I was doing basically like 3 like powerlifting kind of focus days and then 2 event days. So what I'll probably do is just do one event day. There's a really good 90 kilo strongman that trains in my gym, so I'll probably just pick one of the days he's training and hop in with him and just do whatever he's doing, and then make sure I get enough bench volume to not lose it.
Fair enough. Hell yeah. So last thing about the American Pro, predictions outside of yourself. What are some of the performances that you're most excited to see? Battles you're most excited to see? Do you have your eyes on any of that stuff, or you kind of been focusing on what you got to do?
I mean, I'm excited to see what Blake does at 198. I think he's doing 198 for this meet, right?
Oh, I don't know. Is he? Did he change it? I guess
Uh,
I can look that up and see.
I don't know. I thought he was like officially moving up to 198, but it might just be Ghost Clash.
Yeah, I know he said for the Ghost Clash this when he's officially going up, but possibly. But regardless, what he could do in wraps right now, I'm excited to see that for sure.
So like Blake, want to see Chad's return. Basically, all the guys that I said keep an eye on, like Zach Myers, his train's been looking insane. Dan Grigsby, Juwan, all those guys. To be honest, I didn't really look too much at the women's roster, but Christy Hawkins always a monster, and Brianni, she's pulled like 625 recently.
Yeah, it's gonna be that I think from a weight class, like we haven't had a big weight class battle on our side of things in a while. And seeing Christy, Brianni and Denise, all three go head to head, and all three of them capable of breaking back to back to back the deadlift all time world record. That's gonna be pretty fucking nuts to see. And it'd be pretty fucking sick if one of them can break the heaviest women's deadlift of all time, that has only been done by, heavier women in the 165 class. That'd be fucking nuts.
Yeah. What is it? 650? Is that the heaviest?
641, I believe, in powerlifting, if you're not counting like what they do with the Arnold or whatever.
Yeah, that's doable. Holy shit.
Yeah, fucking nuts, dude. And it's all Sunday, so you're able to kick back, relax, and have some fun.
Oh yeah, I'm excited for I'm excited for the costume party.
I'm starting my drive back Sunday night, so I'm not gonna be there, but I'm curious to see what you end up dressing up as. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if like half the lame ass powerlifters just come in their normal clothes, and then we
I can see that, yeah.
kick them out and shit, and you come in some crazy doofy shit. I know it's gonna be great.
Yeah.
So
I mean, like it's not like a super insane outfit, but we have a group that has like a theme, so it'll be
perfect.
fun.
That's all you need. Hell yeah.
Right.
So, John, it was a pleasure, man. I'm super excited to see you in just a couple of days. I start my drive up there tomorrow. By the time you guys hear this episode, it will be just 2 or 3 days before the competition. John will probably already be out in Manassas getting ready to rock, starting his cut. So thank you for tuning on, John. Sign us out. Let everyone know where they could find you.
All right, thanks for having me. You can find me on Instagram, Bilbo_Swaggins181, and I guess also YouTube. If you just look up John Haack, you can probably find it. But yeah,
I've watched some of your videos. I like watching you. Talk. I love how you just always have that little cute smirk undertone. You know what I mean? It's
really. Oh yeah, I like refuse to shoot those with my girlfriend in the apartment. I'm like,
because you're like, I'm staring at me, babe. Jesus fucking Christ. That's like when
I just can't have people like watch me like because those are like 20 takes because I just keep screwing it up and I don't think about what I'm gonna say beforehand.
That's how I used to always do the Q&As, but I do the ones where you talk to the camera, and a lot of them would always take multiple takes. And then when my wife stopped working and she was always home all the time with me and always in the background, I just had to stop doing them. Like a year and a half ago when she quit her job, I just couldn't do them anymore because she's always like making fucking faces, talking shit about what I say. So yes, man, I feel your pain. So guys, go check out John on YouTube. Check him out next week on the Ghost Clash live stream on the WRPF YouTube page. And excited to see you out there, crush it, brother.
And see you in a few weeks or a few days.
Thanks for tuning on, guys. Hope you enjoyed this week's episode.